Long Island, New York, a quiet suburban street. But behind this seemingly idyllic facade lies a chilling secret. This is the infamous Amityville house, a house forever etched in the annals of true crime history. On November 13th, 1974, a horrific tragedy unfolded within these walls. Ronald DeFeo Jr., a seemingly ordinary young man, brutally murdered his entire family, his parents, two brothers, and two sisters, while they slept. The murders shocked the nation, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and a chilling sense of dread. Was it a random act of violence, or something more sinister? The story of the Amityville Horror would only just begin. Join me as we delve into the chilling details of the DeFeo murders, explore the haunting history of this infamous house, and try to unravel the truth behind one of the most notorious cases in American history. In the early 1970s, the DeFeos moved from Brooklyn to a 5-bedroom Dutch colonial house in Amityville and soon became a part of the community. Ronald DeFeo Sr. would regularly give a neighbor rides to her job, and the entire family watched over another neighbor whose husband died, the New York Times reported. The DeFeos also held Sunday prayer huddles and had a large fountain statue of Saint Joseph holding a baby Jesus in their front yard. Uraburu and Dawn DeFeo attended the same Catholic elementary school, and when they were teens, they played for the same neighborhood softball team. She was a sweet and funny girl, Uraburu says. I was at her house for a lot of family pool parties. Ronald DeFeo was the black sheep, Uraburu says. In Italian families, firstborn male sons are the heir apparent, and he was not headed in that direction, she recalls. He was always lurking around, and he seemed like a creepy guy. He kind of looked like Charles Manson. DeFeo partied hard, often bringing friends and acquaintances to his parents' house after bars closed to keep drinking, according to press reports. DeFeo also regularly lost his cool and got into fights, behavior that caused friction with Ronald DeFeo Sr., Uraburu says. Yet, DeFeo inherited his short temper from his father, says Rick Osuna, an investigative journalist who authored the book, The Night the DeFeos Died. Ron Sr. was quite abusive to the children, especially Butch, Osuna tells Any True Crime. Ron Sr. would go on an abusing spree and then go pray in front of the St. Joseph statue for forgiveness, according to neighbors Osuna interviewed for his book. Neighbors didn't want to get involved because Ron Sr. bragged about having mob connections. Uraburu says she's unaware of any incidents of Ronald DeFeo Sr. physically abusing his kids, but confirmed that the dad was overbearing with his oldest son and that neighbors would sometimes mention the father had tangential ties to organized crime. We grew up at a time when the nuns in Catholic schools could hit you, Uraburu says. The father was probably very tough on him as the oldest son. The father was a big guy and Ronald Jr. was not. In the early evening of November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr., known as Butch by family and friends at this time, walked into a hometown bar in Amityville to have a drink. John Altieri, one of the patrons, recalled DeFeo shouting, "My father and mother have been shot." Altieri and 4 other barflies piled into 23-year-old DeFeo's car and drove to his family's 3-story house in the tiny hamlet in Long Island, New York. While DeFeo waited in the car, Altieri and the others went up to the 2nd floor. One of them called 911 after they found the bodies of DeFeo's 4 siblings, 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark, and 7-year-old John Matthew, the New York Times reported. Suffolk County police detectives subsequently discovered the bodies of DeFeo's parents, 43-year-old Ronald Sr. and 42-year-old Louise. The 6 victims, who were found in their beds wearing pajamas, had each been shot in the back with a rifle. The following day, homicide investigators arrested DeFeo, charging him with murdering his parents, sisters, and brothers. DeFeo initially claimed his relatives were victims of a possible mob hit, but DeFeo eventually confessed to shooting them during his police interview. DeFeo and his lawyer, William Weber, claimed that DeFeo was driven mad by a satanic presence in the house and pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. The jury didn't buy the "devil made me do it" defense, and the judge sentenced DeFeo to 6 consecutive life sentences. The former DeFeo home at 112 Ocean Avenue became notorious as the murder house and sat empty for nearly a year until George and Kathy Lutz moved in with their 3 kids and a dog. The story of what happened to the Lutz family over 28 harrowing days in December 1975 and January 1976 has been retold many times and has morphed slightly with every telling. In all versions, there is a local Catholic priest whom the Lutzes asked to bless the house due to its earlier reputation. According to one story, the priest sensed a sinister presence in one of the upstairs bedrooms and warned the Lutzes not to sleep in that room. In the book, the priest felt a sharp slap on his face and heard a groaning voice scream, "Get out!" In the movie, the priest was also attacked by a swarm of flies. Then the really weird stuff began, doors slamming open and shut at all hours. A persistent coldness in the house, despite roaring fires in the fireplace. Drops of gelatinous goo, red in some versions, green or black in others, appearing on the walls and carpet. One night, Kathy transformed into a 90-year-old crone. Another, the face of a demon-eyed pig, appeared in a bedroom window. On their final night in the house, George reported that Kathy levitated and slid off the bed, while George was kept awake all night by the sound of the children's bed slamming on the floors above him, flickering lights, and an unseen presence lurking in the room. The next day, the kids awoke traumatized, saying they were unable to move or leave their rooms. The Lutzes, terrified and exhausted, couldn't take it anymore. On January 14, 1976, they left everything behind at 112 Ocean Avenue, never to return. In the ensuing years, the Lutzes, including their children who were present in the house, defended most of the details of the hauntings that made them flee. Soon after the Lutzes abandoned the house, they met with William Weber, the lawyer who represented Ronald DeFeo, the convicted killer. Weber, it turned out, was already shopping around the idea of a book about the DeFeo family murders called "Devil on My Back." According to Weber, he and the Lutzes had a creative brainstorming session over many bottles of wine. The Lutzes shared the story of the unsettling things that they felt and saw at the house, and Weber shared details about the DeFeos and the killing that only he knew. Weber claimed that several of these details were spun into the book and the movie. Weber told the Lutzes that a neighbor's cat would peer into the DeFeo's window at night. That became the red-eyed pig. Ronald DeFeo's father had once smacked his mother while she held a plate of red sauce spaghetti. That became the mysterious red goo on the wall that morphed into green slime bubbling from keyholes. "We took real-life incidents and transposed them," said Weber in 1988. In other words, it was a hoax. Bartholomew is convinced that the Lutzes abandoned the house because they couldn't keep up with the mortgage and tax payments and created the haunting story as an excuse and a lucrative side hustle. They wanted to make some money off of it, says Bartholomew, who co-authored a 2016 article in Skeptic magazine marking the 40th anniversary of the myth. For their part, the Lutzes never retracted their story. "Our critics are people who've never been in the house, just people who read a book," Lutz told the Washington Post in 1979. "No one who was ever in the house, who investigated it, ever called it a hoax." No one with any credentials who was personally involved ever called it a hoax. No one who helped us there with the auction, with getting stuff to the Salvation Army, ever called it a hoax. All I know is what happened to me. The Amityville house, now with a different house number to discourage horror fans, has been sold at least 4 times since the murders, and none of the newer owners have reported seeing any psychic phenomena. It last sold in 2016 for $850,000. The Amityville Horror remains one of the most enduring and controversial true crime stories of all time. Was it a haunting, a hoax, or simply a tragic case of domestic violence? You decide. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more true crime content. And don't forget, we never know what may or may not be happening behind closed doors. Whether that is something supernatural or something that makes a man snap and kill his whole family.